Hello everybody, this is Nairi and I'm running an adoption support channel, and today we've got our number 8 in our practical attachment series, which is all about how to use attachment practically with your children. So if you're interested in attachment generally speaking, or you have a child that's adopted already, this video is going to be useful for you. So we've covered various subjects in our previous videos, but today is all about how do you deal with poor attachment, insecure attachment when you're out and about with your child. So it could be local trips to the supermarket, it could be holidays, it could be outings, places that you've never been before. And for us as a family, this has always been a challenge because we find that our boys get very anxious whenever we go out, unless it's someone that they're really familiar with. And we've built up those independent skills with them to go locally because they're now nearly 12 and 13. But when we go anywhere new, they have 100,000 questions. So I've got 6 tips for you as to how to best cope with the situation that I believe will help you when you're out and about with your children. So point number 1 is hold firm to the boundaries that you would normally have. You can find when children are anxious when they're out and about that actually they may say push the buttons a little bit and find it really difficult to settle. The behaviour may not be what you would expect. You might find different things happening that you are not ready for, and it's very easy when you're out and other people are around watching you to actually decide that you're not going to hold firm to what you would normally do. And it's a strange thing with adopted children or children that have suffered trauma, that actually when you break your own rules that you can in effect break, they become more insecure because actually they are used to those boundaries. And even though they are saying they don't want them there and they might push them when you're out and about, actually they do need them there, and that's all part of therapeutic parenting. So my point number 2 is when you go out for a trip or an outing, especially if it's somewhere different, then take the time to check in with your child and make sure they're okay. So even if they look like they're okay, and even if things are going really well and you've got like part way through the day and everything seems to be going smooth sailing as it were, take the time to check in and ask them if they're all right. Give them the chance to voice to you if they've got any concerns or anxieties. Now for our children, when we're out and about, the anxiety will be where we're going to get lunch from, or when we're going to have lunch, or when we're going to have dinner, especially if we've not brought any food with us, or if we have brought food with us, then that food will want to be consumed pretty quickly, almost as soon as we're out the door. So those anxieties can be alleviated if we have those conversations with the boys early on in the day. So even if they're not saying anything, it's good to check in. It's good to check in on a regular basis. So my point number 3, which is something that I mentioned on my other videos, if you've watched my keeping close video, is all about making sure that the physical proximity is there, because with attachment, that's how your child feels safe. So when you're out and about, the trouble is for the child, there's lots of things that's going to be thrown at them. It might be new things to see that might make them anxious. It's certainly going to have strange people around, and it's environments they're not used to. So it's really important, if you can, to make sure you have that physical closeness to them. Now with a younger child, normally you're going to have them in a buggy or a pram, or you're going to hold their hand. It's not so difficult perhaps to produce that physical closeness, but as your child becomes more independent, kind of the preschool stage where they don't have to hold your hand, or older again, it can be that they feel detached from you, and that can make them feel more anxious. So take the time to give them the odd hug here and there. You don't have to have a reason for that. Hold the hand here and there, just to make them feel safe and secure, and to remind them that you are there for them and that you are there as their attachment figure, and making sure that they're not going to come into any danger. My point number 4 is it's really important to have the basic needs of the child met. So I don't know if you've heard of Maslow's theory, where the theory is that if you're too hot, too cold, or you haven't been fed and you're not having your basic needs met, you haven't been to the toilet, you're not going to be able to concentrate on anything else. And I really think it's very similar with our adopted children or children that have suffered trauma and attachment. They need to know that their basic needs are going to be met, otherwise they're not going to feel safe. So if they're bursting for the toilet, or they haven't had lunch early enough, or they haven't had enough for breakfast, or they're cold, or they're hot, or they're just out of sorts, maybe they're not that well, those basic needs have to be met. And sometimes when our trips or on holidays, perhaps we're not in routine as much, especially on holiday. I think on holiday everything seems to come late, or children go to bed late, and this can cause issues with those basic needs being met. So bear in mind when you go on a holiday, particularly, to plan out your days and make sure that you're going to have the regular stops for toilet breaks and lunch breaks, and they're going to go to bed at a reasonable time so they're not absolutely exhausted. My point number 5 is something perhaps adopters don't always want to hear, because as soon as they've adopted, they want to get away on a holiday and do something different. Obviously COVID has prevented a lot of that, but you know, things are moving a little bit more, and we all want to get away, show our child different things, new experiences, and that's part of life. We've gradually built up that with our boys, from just doing local holidays and things like that, gradually going for longer trips until we finally took the boys abroad to France. Now that built up over a long period of time, and our boys have been very neglected, very traumatised, and that's what it needed for us. So I would say that you know your child well, you're going to know your adopted child well, you're going to know what experiences they've come from and what they have and haven't had from a foster carer. So some foster carers will take children away and give them lots of experiences abroad as well as at home. For those adopted children, it may not be such a shock to get on a train, a bus, a plane. It might be something they've done before. But I would really say, please don't do too much too soon with your adopted child. Build them up around the locality, give them lots of experiences locally, and take them for short day trips, and then build on that. And then perhaps you can go for weekends away locally, and then build up trains, etc., planes, until you have the full repertoire. But if you go too soon with them, they'll be so anxious that they won't enjoy anything. And I have had situations or heard of situations where that anxiety reaches such a level that there's no chance really that the adopted parent's ever going to enjoy their holiday. And my point number 6 is, if you can actually plan ahead a lot around the visit so that the child understands and knows what's going to happen. Now clearly you can't necessarily take them to a trip to France, for example, if that's where you're going. You can't preempt that, but you can talk a lot about it. You can show them lots of pictures, show them where they're going to stay, and if it's local, maybe you can pre-do the trip for yourself and check out whether you think it's going to accommodate your child. Whatever you can do in preparation, either for yourself or for the child to see where they're going and what they're doing, is clearly going to make things much easier for you. I would also say to you, when it comes to trips to the supermarket and doing things that you need to do from a task point of view from the household, sometimes we force children to come with us and do things with us when we don't actually need to do that. Now, you may not have the privilege of leaving a child at home when you go to the supermarket. You may not have the privilege of having somebody else there for you to do things so that you can go off and do what you need to do. But sometimes I feel that we do sort of force our children to try and enjoy things that we're going to enjoy because we want them to be there with us, or we want them to enjoy what we're going to enjoy. So, as I say, try to limit the exposure your child has to unwanted situations that aren't going to benefit them. So thank you for listening to Adoption with Nairi. Check out my practical attachment playlist, which this is number 8, is part of, but there's also an attachment and bonding playlist that has lots of information in. My family and I have not been too well with COVID. I've not been well with an infection, so apologies if I look really rough because I don't feel great. But thank you still for watching Adoption with Nairi, and check out my channel, and I'll see you on my next video. Thank you.